Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the European Volleyball Show. Rob, we are finally back live on the air. Hopefully, you guys at least got to catch some of our Olympic previews. But, Rob, there is so much volleyball to go over. We have a huge competition to talk about today. The Olympics, the biggest competition of them all. And, Rob, glad to have you joining me today to talk just pure volleyball today.
Thanks, Dan. It's great to be back. It's great to be back live. We did some previews on the YouTube channel that people may have watched about some of the indoor pools, but it's cool to hop on live and kind of tackle this gigantic tournament about midway through. There's a lot going on, including like literally live right now. 2 European teams are battling in men's indoor, France and the Russian Olympic Committee, who I think it would just be easier to refer to them as Russia for the sake of the show. France is up 24-17 on Russia in the third. 25-17. Okay, it's over. So France just took a 2-1 lead over Russia, who Russia previously unbeaten in Pool B on the men's side. So that is going on literally as we speak. So there's a lot of volleyball happening. We'll talk about all of it, beach, indoor. Strap in, ladies and gentlemen. We got a lot to get to.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot to get to. And of course, we're doing this live. So remember to get involved in the chat. Throw your questions in there because we will be reading it the entire time and we're going to respond on air. I'd love to have you guys as part of the conversation. But Rob, there is a lot to get to today. So why don't we dive right into it, going into the men's indoor tournaments. And it's been a crazy one so far, just like we expected. Especially the Pool B, we knew was going to be tough, but I think Pool A was, surprisingly exciting. And why don't we start there?
Yeah, let's do that. So the prohibitive favorites, I'd say, at least in a European sense, coming into the tournament, like the best, most highly ranked European team coming in for sure was Poland, like without a question. I think Russia has now elevated themselves to that level, but Poland started off the tournament with a pretty crazy loss to Iran, which I didn't expect. It was a really good match, and Iran played phenomenally well. Like that, what was it, 23-21 in the fifth? So crazy, like fifth set tiebreaker win. And that kind of was just the beginning of all the craziness that's gone on in Pool A. Because since then, Poland's been perfect. They 3-0 Japan overnight. Overnight from me. Apologies in advance for being confused about time zones. But yeah, Poland's playing a lot better. Italy beat Iran 3-1 overnight in a pretty close 4-set match. So the 2 European teams, I think actually Italy has now clinched after that. So the European teams are in pretty good shape in Pool A, but there's a lot of wacky stuff going on over there. Before last night's matches, there were so many like crazy tie-breaking scenarios, and now with 4 out of the 5 matches done, things are starting to take shape just a little bit more. So it's nice to have the show now to be able to talk about that and be able to kind of predict what's going to happen in the quarterfinals, but there's still a lot to be decided on both sides.
Well, we certainly know a lot more today than we did a couple of days ago. That's the way it goes with these kinds of things. But you're right, Rob, that Poland versus Iran match certainly set the tone at the beginning of the tournament. And as Giovanni Guidetti has said on the Ace Space podcast, sometimes losing is the best medicine. And there's no better time to do it than right at the beginning of a tournament like this to get back on track, set the tone, show that every team is competitive here. You can't take a single point off at the Olympics, and Poland has shown since then that they are certainly one of the best teams in the tournament, like we predicted going into the tournament. Maybe Rob Wilfredo Leon hasn't been his normal self, but I think the rest of the Polish team, maybe Michał Kubiak missed a bit of time due to I think a back injury, but overall, Poland, everyone stepped up. I think their middle blockers have played great. I think Zatorski's played great. I think actually Fabian Drija has done a great job at the setting position. So Poland definitely contender through to the next round. Like you said, Italy, a bit of a rough start, especially missing Simone Gianelli for a bit of time at the beginning there. Against Canada, was down 2-0, had to come back to win in 5 sets. That was a great comeback win for them, and it ended up being fairly important, I would say, in terms of giving themselves a cushion. But Rob, we've talked about him many times on the show before, but let's give him another shout out because it's been a while since we've had a show. I think you know what I'm going to talk about. Alessandro
I
Micheletto.
absolutely do. The
So
kid is just so good. So what we were hoping coming into this Olympics that the coaching staff would in fact put him in that second outside hitter starting role. That's where he is, sure enough. So that's been great to see throughout the tournament. But I wish I had the numbers on hand. He's been unbelievable. He's been incredibly efficient attacking. He's blocked the ball really well, which he's really good at. He's served. He passes nails. He's like legitimately the 7-foot left-handed 19-year-old unicorn, Dan, that you coined like months ago when we first started seeing him in Trentino. He's been that good for Italy in the Olympics, and just like we kind of predicted, he's been exactly the piece that they needed. And you're not kidding about that comeback against Canada. I know that's a tough one for you personally, but
I'm
Italy
fine
now,
today,
like,
Rob. I'm fine today now that we're through.
yeah, right. Yeah. Yesterday was a very good day for Canada with everything falling the way of the maple volleys in general. But yeah, Italy now at 3-1. Like if they were 2-2 in this giant, like it would have been like a 4-way. Well, I guess it still would have been a 3-way tie at 2-2. There's just a lot of crazy stuff going on in Pool A. I'm not sure between the three, like Canada, Japan, and Iran, none of them European, but like those three teams for only 2 spots is going to be crazy to follow the last day. And Italy coming back from down 2-0, and like I don't think they needed to beat Poland. Obviously they didn't play Gianelli just to give them a break. I think that was managed reasonably well for both teams. I think they're in a very good spot. I think they're playing pretty well. I do think though, Dan, I don't know if you would agree with this. Ivan Zaitsev looks about a half a step slow. I don't know if he's quite ready to like carry a team to a medal. I don't quite see that out of him right now. I think
It
Micheletto looks phenomenal. I don't quite see it though out of Ivan Zaitsev.
I would say you're almost giving him a little too much credit here, Rob. And Ivan Zaitsev, a legendary player, one of the best volleyball players of all time, I would say. But in this particular tournament at the Olympics, yeah, you're right. He has looked a little heavy. He's looked a little slow. Maybe there's some injury concerns that we don't know about. But when we checked the stats last, he was hitting under 20% hitting efficiency, which is not something you want out of your theoretical first option on offense at the opposite position. And today we saw maybe he tweaked his finger a bit and went out of the game. And Vittoria came in and I thought actually did a fairly stable, good job. So
He did the same against Canada in the first match.
exactly.
Zaitsev went to the bench in set 2. It looked like his knee was bothering him a little bit, like when the camera showed him on the sidelines. And Vittoria came in and was perfectly fine. Like we've kind of made fun of Vittoria a lot because you never really know what you're going to get out of him. He's like super streaky, for better or for worse. But so far in this Olympics since coming in, he's been pretty reliable. So that's a big deal for Italy in case they happen to need him, which already they have a couple times.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I don't know, Rob, do you think quarterfinals, would you start Vittori or Zaitsev?
I'm never gonna not start Zaitsev. It's kind of like Poland, like starting Kubiak just for the sake of doing it, or France starting Ingapet, or some of those sorts of moves. Like you're never gonna not start Zaitsev, but the fact that you know kind of what you're gonna get out of Vittori and that it's pretty good is a luxury, because in case Ivan's not 100% or he's not playing well or he's not nearly efficient enough, you can go to that off the bench and be more comfortable with it than maybe if you hadn't seen it yet this tournament. So I think he's still going to start, but maybe the leash is a little shorter than we initially thought.
Yeah, I think that leash is he's not going to be afraid to be pulled out for the second set if he continues to play like this. But a player like Zaitsev is always going to be capable of a 20-plus point game and capable of going off with his serve, which I think is his biggest advantage over Vittoria.
Totally.
He's capable of that serving pressure,
How
especially.
many times have we seen it just completely like dominating a match, like flipping it on its head just from Ivan Zaitsev by himself at the service line? There's always the potential for that.
And with Micheletto playing like he is, by the way, has improved a huge amount in attacking already since the superfinals. He's a legitimate offensive threat now, which is amazing to see after all that training in VNL maybe. So him, Juan-Torena Zaitsev, on paper, that is 3 premier attacking wings, and Italy already has the best offense on the men's side. So the sky's the limit for this team, and I think, like we said in our previews, potentially a medal contender this year.
Definitely, they've done what they needed to do in pools, and that now is when it starts to get really interesting, because some of the some pool matches have been more important than others, and things have gone a lot of different ways. And in any given match, it's seemed in general like one team has needed each match more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of how it goes in pools. Like Italy against Poland, for example, Poland needed that match way more than Italy did, and they came out and won it. And Italy like didn't play Gianelli because he was, I'm not sure what his mild injury was, but something was bothering him a little bit. They kept him out. Spertoli played. They lost, and it didn't really matter all that much. It's just kind of how pools go. And with the top 4 teams making it out, you just got to do your job. You got to, check the boxes in order to make it out of pools until it starts to get really serious. And that's coming very, very soon. Both Italy and Poland in Pool A in a really good spot. So before we talk about Pool B, Dan, I think it's worth talking about how the crossovers work in this tournament, because I actually didn't know this until recently about the second and third place teams, how that works.
Go for it, Rob. Explain to our viewers how that crossover works.
Okay. So both on the men's and the women's side, the format is the same for indoor. You got 2 pools of 6. Top 4 teams in each pool make it out, right? And for crossovers, it starts off pretty simple. The first place team in Pool A will play the 4th place team in Pool B, and vice versa. So first in B will play 4th in A. However, it's not quite that simple for the second and third place teams in each pool. I was hearing this on one of the broadcasts that like back in maybe 2004, there was a situation of a team probably losing a match on purpose to generate certain matchups in the quarterfinals between second and third. So the Olympic Committee got rid of that, and now instead of like third place second, second place third, the 2 second and third place teams in each pool will be randomly drawn against the second and third place teams from the other pool for the quarterfinals. So you don't know who you're going to get. If you finish second or third, you have no idea who you're going to play in the quarterfinals until the pool is completely over. That's to avoid anybody like doing anything funky and trying to like fix their matchups. They're predetermined their quarterfinal matchups before it happens. So nobody knows who's going to play like the second versus third seeds in each pool until the pools are over. They will be randomly drawn. So you could get, excuse me, a second versus second, or a third versus third, or a second versus third. We don't know. What we do know for sure is first versus fourth in each pool. But then the random drawing of those middle 2 teams makes it really, really interesting. It actually makes it so effectively there's no difference between finishing second versus third in a pool. It makes absolutely no difference. So I, as a USA fan, after losing to Brazil last night, I'm just telling myself that it doesn't matter if we get second versus third now, because the matchups are randomly drawn in the quarters. As long as you don't slip to fourth, or you don't have a chance of reaching all the way up to first, second versus third is pretty much inconsequential. So a lot of really interesting stuff going on there with pools. That I didn't know that until this tournament, so I thought it was important to make that clear to the people.
Yeah, no, it's a seemingly small detail maybe, but that'll end up probably having a huge impact, especially because it's one match that's so matchup based at this level. So it will end up mattering. So definitely that's going to be interesting to watch. Rob, why don't we go on to Pool B, which is actually going on right now, as a Parslin in the chat says Russia's too bad today. Rob, you want to give us a quick update on the live match right now, and then we'll get right into Pool B.
Yes, France is up 2-1 on Russia, the Russian Olympic Committee, who we will refer to as Russia for the purposes of the show.
Or the Rock. I like the Rock.
The Rock. I like the Rock. That's really good. And France is up 9-5 in the 4th. So again, an example of one team needing a match a heck of a lot more than the other. France needs this match. They're now at 10-6. It just updated. France needs this match desperately. After losing to Argentina, getting pounded by the USA in the first match of the tournament, France needs to beat either Russia or Brazil, maybe both, to advance. They need this match desperately, and they're playing like it. Russia, meanwhile, undefeated, comfortably in first place. And even if they lose this one, they'll still be in first place because one of Brazil's wins came in 5. So Russia doesn't need this one as much, and France is playing like it, and they're taking it to them right now, 11-6 in the 4th.
And France is also their odds increased quite a bit this morning when Argentina lost two sets to Tunisia, Rob. which
That was a head scratcher.
costly, because on paper Argentina has had a very good tournament so far. They've played incredibly. Which of the very strong teams did they beat? It was France. They beat France in 5 sets, right?
They beat France in 5, but they had one of the all-time volleyball chokes in recent memory against
Brazil. That was
oh
that was
my
tough.
goodness, that was awful. So they were up 2-0, and then in the fourth they were up 17-11 before losing 25-21. If you do the math really quick, that is a 14-4 run that they gave up and ended up losing in the fifth, I think 16-14 against like their bitter rivals. So that was a massive missed opportunity for Argentina. But that, like, just the fact that they took 2 sets was important for the points and the tiebreakers. But the same thing goes the other way with them dropping 2 sets to Tunisia. That's big. So France now, the door is open if they can, in fact, continue to beat Russia. 12-7 in the fourth is the latest update. So we're going to keep our eyes on that very closely.
Yeah, and it's gonna come down to the wire, I think, in Pool B between Argentina and France. And we have a question in the chat. Sood Noor asks, is Argentina a dark horse for the tournament? The thing about Argentina,
I don't know. Go ahead, Dan. I'm curious.
I was going to say they have been very inconsistent. At their best, they have played some incredible volleyball. We've seen Santiago Dinani, probably, other than Grebennikov after today, the best libero of the tournament. We've seen the classic middle play from Luciano De Cecco to the Sole and to Augustin Lozère. It has been incredible. However, they really haven't been able to rely on their outside hitters, and I think when getting through an entire playoff gauntlet when both your outside hitters are hitting under 30%, that's not going to work. So I think the teams are just going to key on the middle. And Conte hasn't played his top level volleyball for over 6 months now. So I don't see it returning for the end of this Olympics. So I would say Argentina probably not a dark horse.
Yeah, agreed. So a lot will depend on if France is able to hold on to beat Russia in this match, because that would put them at 2-2, just like Argentina is, but with a lot more points. If they win this, then they'll have 7 points to Argentina's 5. So that's a massive difference in the tiebreakers right there. Argentina has the USA last, and France has Brazil last. So if this does hold up, France is in a much better position to advance, regardless of what happens against Brazil. Argentina would have to beat the USA and have France lose in order to advance. So,
which Rob, I think it's possible. Unlikely.
It's possible. But now, like, I obviously, as a USA fan, but the USA, after losing to Brazil last night, now must beat Argentina. That's really a must win for both teams. And like we talked about, Dan, on one of our previews, I don't remember which one, that the USA matches up pretty well against Argentina, especially with their wings, Argentina's wings not having all that good of a tournament. The USA's like just totally go for it strategy from the service line is a good one against a team like Argentina, because if you put them to 15 feet, then they're really, really predictable and pretty beatable in my opinion. So I like the USA there. And France versus Brazil, I'm not really sure what we're going to get, because Brazil might or might not need the match, but they also could have a chance to win the pool if Russia does indeed go on to lose against France here. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on in Pool B.
Yeah, and I think France has always been a team that seemed to play Brazil pretty well. I mean, there was the 2017 World League Finals. They went to 5. I believe they went to 5 also at the World Championships. They played that incredible, what is like a 35-point set at Nations League earlier this year. So that's always a fun matchup to watch. But Rob, why don't we talk about Russia or the Rock or whatever you want to call it for this tournament? Because they have been we've always known Russia's good. We both picked them to win VNL. But they've been especially impressive, maybe this current game notwithstanding.
Yeah, other than this current game, which I really think it's just an example of France needing the win more than Russia does. Other than that, Russia's been tremendous. That Brazil match was a statement. 3-0, convincing.
Yes.
Dmitry Volkov was unbelievable. Maxim Mikhailov wasn't even that particularly good earlier in the tournament, and now he looks like his normal Hall of Fame self. Igor Kliuk has been good. Igor Kobzar has actually been really, really good at the center position. Like I think both you and I would have rather seen Pavel Penkov coming into this tournament, but Kobzar's been terrific I think he's run a really good offense. Ivan Yakovlev is back and at truly top form, legitimately one of the best middles in the world. Like Russia looks like they can just flex size and strength against literally any team in the tournament. They completely did it against Brazil. Brazil hit, I think, 101 in that match, like 10% efficiency as a team, which is horrible.
Well, do
And
you want to know, Rob, what teams are hitting against Russia overall for the tournament? Because I have the
yes,
number.
I would love to know that. That would be really interesting.
25% efficiency against Russia.
Wow.
And they've played some good teams too, as we know.
Yeah, and Russia, by the way, has Tunisia last, which
Yeah.
if they need a win, that's where you go to get one. So that's why I think this match, Russia against France, doesn't matter for Russia all that much. However, just as I say that, Russia has now brought set 4 back to within a point. It's now 14-13
Oh,
France
wow. Oh,
in
wow.
the fourth, up 2-1. So we'll continue to follow that. But yeah, I don't, even if Russia loses this, I don't think it matters that much because they'll get probably a nice easy win against Tunisia, finish at perhaps 4-1 at worst, and Brazil will have to beat France to tie, but they're down 1 point because of the tiebreakers. So I think Russia's in the driver's seat to win this pool, and because of the crossover that they're likely to get from the other pool in Pool A, regardless of which of those teams, Canada, Japan, or Iran finishes in fourth, Russia matches up well against all 3 of them.
I believe it's almost guaranteed to be Canada that they're going to cross over with.
Really? Okay, so Canada, based on the tiebreakers, is likely going to be fourth.
Yeah, I think the way it's going to work, whatever team between Japan and Iran wins that match will jump Canada, and the other team will jump out of the playoffs. Essentially.
Interesting. So a do or die match between Japan and Iran head to head.
Not European, but if you're a volleyball fan, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's must-see TV right there. Oh, there's so much crazy stuff going on. Yeah, we'll keep you guys updated about France and Russia. But yeah, it's funny, Dan, because like in VNL, we saw Brazil play phenomenally well. We saw Poland play pretty well. We didn't see Russia play all that well at all. And now all 3 of those teams have kind of flipped those scripts for better or for worse in this tournament. Russia looks like maybe the best team in the world. Brazil hasn't looked good at all until riding the ship against the US last night. And Poland has looked a little weird. It's just less convincing than I would expect it to be for them in Pool A. So the turnarounds, the storylines are so fascinating.
And for me, this is incredible for volleyball because there is parity at the top. We see in maybe a lot of Olympic sports, it's the same teams winning every single time. But volleyball, legitimately, I don't think anyone could pick between like the top 5 teams in the tournament right now. There's no one that's convincingly better than the others, and I think that's amazing for a volleyball fan to watch and follow the tournaments. So Rob, before we move on from the men's indoor, we have a couple of questions that we had on Instagram. Hopefully those people are watching live as well. Quentin INS17 asked, do you think Brazil will play better once they reach the quarterfinals? And what do you think of Russia, which we already answered, but Brazil, are they going to turn it around?
Yes, their Brazil is I think that kind of says it all. When they're pushed to a limit and they need to flip a switch to win a match, they can do that. Backs against the wall against Argentina, they turned it around. After playing really badly against Russia, they played substantially better just based on the eye test against the USA last night, or this morning, depending on where you're watching from. And everybody who makes it to the quarterfinals will have no choice but to step up their game. And Brazil, of all teams, is very capable of doing that. I would be shocked if they didn't make it to at least the semis.
Yeah, I think we can't count out Brazil. I think what's bothering them is a little bit mental. Al Parslan chimes in the chat with, if France lose today, then they have no chance against Brazil, in my opinion. I don't know. With Brazil playing like they are and France.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think the pool play phase is, again, these matchups are kind of defined by necessity. If France loses this, which by the way, now they're up 19-14 in the fourth. They've pulled away. They've been on a nice little run against Russia. So if they fail to hold on and lose this match, they will have absolutely no choice but to beat Brazil. And Brazil, I think with 3 wins, has clinched a spot in the quarterfinals at least somewhere. So again, if that matchup does come down to necessity, then France absolutely has a chance just because they need it more. It's just the way the pool phase works.
Yeah, and we've seen so many times in the Olympics that a team doesn't win their pool, doesn't play that well in the pool phase, and then comes back and has an amazing round. We saw it with Italy in 2016. We saw it with China on the women's side in 2016. It's something that can for sure happen. And the real Olympics starts, guys. It hasn't started yet. I have to, really hasn't.
I agree. Yeah, these matches are about putting yourself in the right position and figuring out what you've got in your gym as a team, what you've got on the bench, what you've got on the floor, and then but that quarterfinal round, I think it's Monday night into Tuesday. Whatever, time zones are confusing for this one, but I'm pretty sure it's Tuesday or Monday. Those 4 quarterfinal matches will be like the best single day of volleyball in this 5-year cycle. It's going to be amazing.
Wow. All right. Looking forward to that. So I think that's it for the men. Again, if you guys have any more questions, throw them in the chat. We can go back for a bit and answer those. But Rob, I think a lot of people in the chat are here for the women's indoor volleyball, because I know a certain European team gave your girls a very good match the other day. Let's move on to the women's indoor, and let's start with pool B this time. With I think Turkey's in pool B, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, pool B on the women's side. Let's start there.
So I watched most of that match. Turkey versus the USA. It was like early in the morning my time, but then I watched the replay. After the USA went up 2-0 on Turkey, Turkey brought it all the way back and very, very narrowly lost in 5. Turkey looks excellent. They look really, really good. They beat China, which was amazing, and China's current record is also something that has to be talked about. But Turkey's put themselves in a good position, even just grabbing a point in the standings from that 5-setter against the US. Is a great achievement for them. I think they're very well positioned to advance at the very least, although the matchup they're likely to get in the quarterfinals is going to be pretty difficult. But I like what I've seen from Turkey so far. Just based on the eye test, they've looked really good. And it's funny, Dan, in one of our previews, I thought okay, we're probably going to see Ebrar Karakurt, Cansu Özbey, and you thought, oh no, maybe not. We're probably going to see Naz and Boz, and we've seen both of them. It's been just as confusing as I kind of thought their starting lineup was going to be. Gudetti's really gone for all the options. We saw both setters, both opposites, at least 3 outside hitters against the USA, and really, I couldn't tell you what their playoff starting lineup is going to be. I have no idea who it's going to be still.
No, it's very interesting. I think more so than maybe any other team in this tournament, except for maybe, I don't know, like France or something on the men's side. But Turkey's throwing out tons of different looks. Yeah, we've seen Karakurt, playing 2 positions, outside hitter and opposite. We've seen Boz at opposite. We've seen, the Baladine and Hande Baladine at outside hitter. We've seen a lot of different players and a lot of different looks. And I think, Rob, do you think that throws opponents scouting off when they play like that? We've seen Sema Erkan, we've seen Malia at outside hitter. I feel like we've almost seen everyone. The middles are mostly stable, but everyone else has been.
Yeah, middles and obviously libero are stable, but yeah, everything else is rotating around. And I'm interested. That's a good point, Dan, in throwing off opponents scouting, but it also. I'm wondering which is thrown off more, opponent scouting or your team's own rhythm or chemistry based on all those changes. Which is more thrown off, and is there the whole cost benefit of that whole thing is interesting. What's nice for Turkey is that they're clearly comfortable and capable with a million different options. All those players are just so talented. It's kind of like the Poland men's problem, that they're all so good that figuring out exactly who the starting lineup is actually difficult for them because everybody is good. Turkey kind of has that same thing. And I actually think the US women have the same thing, that they're all so good that they seem to have settled on a starting lineup now, but coming into this Olympics, I thought it could have been any of the 12 of them. So I don't know, if Gudetti's thinking about that, if mixing it up is an intentional tactic to give a different look to the opponents, but I think it's looked pretty good for them top to bottom this Olympics. I've been impressed.
Yeah, very good. And one player I definitely want to shout out and recognize that's been especially fantastic is Ida Erdem, who,
oh yeah,
as the veteran leader on the team, she has elevated her game for this Olympics. to an incredible extent. I think she's playing better now than she was even in the club season. And, as the veteran on the team with a lot of young players, I guess her and Naz are kind of the elder statesmen, but just has been a monster on both sides of the ball, like a few times getting to the double digits in points. And I think is just been such an incredible player. And this is like her last Olympics. So we've seen maybe a lot of veterans, they get to this age and they take a step back. They don't play as big as a role, maybe more of a leadership role. Guys like Kubiak, maybe we've seen it from Zaitsev a bit, that kind of role. But Boz, no, or sorry, not Boz, Ida, no way. She's right in the thick of things. It's been very cool to watch, and as you know, I've met her like the nicest player ever. She's just such a good person, such a nice player, and definitely this Turkish team has been great to watch. Rob, do you know by any chance what needs to happen for them to get to the playoffs, or should we work through that?
I was just looking at that. So Turkey's 1-2. They lost to Italy, which is everyone's losing to Italy right now. Pallaegonu is on a tear. They lost to the USA, but in 5. So that 1 point in the standings is really important. And they beat China 3-0, which was amazing. So they still have Argentina, which should be a pretty comfortable win. And then perhaps a pool deciding match against the European rivals in Russia, who we've really got to talk about, Dan, as being a pleasant surprise so far.
Yeah, Russia. I mean, I believe somebody asked that in the chat. Sunan Liu asked how did the Russian team doing this year? And I think, Rob, both of us maybe underrated this Russian team because I feel like we both wrote them off a little bit too much. But it turns out that Natalia Goncharova, not only Goncharova's been amazing. Fedorov Steva has been fantastic, and maybe like a player that we overlooked in our preview is someone who's been an incredible player. But those two being two of the leading scorers of the entire tournament, as I'm showing here on my screen, and just I feel like the men, like the block defense is actually playing at quite a high level, and I think that teams are struggling to score against them. And like you said, that upset win was just incredible.
Yeah, it's really interesting how similar the Russian men and women play. It's just fascinating. Yeah, they have the exact same strengths. The real defining match for them was fending off a match point against China and coming back and winning in 5. I saw most of that match yesterday. That was tremendous and put Russia in a phenomenal position to advance. I think you and I, Dan, are both stunned at where China sits in the standings right now. But I think Russia deserves all the credit in that one. They were great.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, like I think people are posting Ariana Fedorov-Steva. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but yeah, a player that's we completely overlooked and has been that second offensive option that we thought Russia needed. We didn't see it. Someone beside Goncharova, and she's been amazing so far. And I still don't know if Russia's maybe a contender. I wouldn't say it that much, but certainly a nice surprise.
Yeah, they're certainly in a good position to advance. And what's going to be really interesting is that Russia versus Turkey match, because the loser of that will almost definitely finish 4th in Pool B. And so they'll get the much more difficult crossover in Pool A. Well, actually, there's a chance that both of them will be difficult because both Serbia and Brazil are currently undefeated in Pool A. But I would do anything I can if I were both Turkey or Russia to avoid playing Serbia right now. I do not want to see Serbia at any point if I'm any other team in this tournament.
So we got a few questions about Serbia. Are they the favorite on our Instagram? And Sophia 4567895 is asked, Rob, do you think Tijana Boskovic is the best player of the tournament so far? She's asking that from Mexico.
Didn't she score in the 30s in a 3-set match?
If you know what match it is, I can pull up. I have the stats showing.
I think it was the very first one.
Okay, let me see if I can find it. Do you want to maybe answer the question a bit, and I can?
Yeah. Is Tijana Boskovic the best player in the tournament? It's either her or Pallaegonu, and the volume of production that Boskovic has put up so far is just ridiculous. I'm excited to see the stats that Dan's pulling up. She's been unstoppable, just eye test and stats. She's been absolutely incredible. She's been everything that Serbia's needed her to be, but also, like we kind of talked about in the previews, she doesn't necessarily have to do that. Like Serbia doesn't have to ride or die with Boskovic at this point because they have firepower everywhere else. It's a nice luxury for them to have. It's different from Italy in that sense, because I do believe that Italy has to go to Paola Egonu to win big matches, but Serbia can go so many other places. And the fact that Boskovic is playing so well right now, again, if I'm any other team, I do not want to see them. I don't think that they can really be slowed down with the role that they're on right now.
I don't know if I fully agree with you there, Rob. I think Serbia does rely on Boskovic a lot to score points. Yes, they have the middles, but like I don't know. I feel like both teams are just. We've seen it's a very viable strategy in women's volleyball. It's the strategy that won the super finals this year of just everyone plays defense, set your super duper star opposite, and let's see what happens. Also, Rob, the second game against Japan, Boskovic 31 points in 3 sets, which is, let's see, it was 31 for 49. So with 6 errors.
49 attempts.
So 25 for 49 counts. So over 50% efficiency.
It's about 50% efficiency. That's 51%. Incredible.
That is unbelievable from Boskovic. And yeah, but also for everyone listening, I heard some people, maybe not disparaging comments, but after Boskovic's performance in the Chetzebatsi, can we all apologize to her? Because she is just the star. I agree, Rob, that Egonu is. I think those two are at the top in the Olympics right now, the two best players in women's volleyball. And yeah, I think just because maybe she couldn't carry that Chetzebatsi team to the top like Egonu could with Caneliano, but of course, volleyball, team sport. Even if you have a player like Boskovic, you can't. Sorry, yes, Carla Santini, 34 points. I was looking at the. I think I was looking at the attacking.
Just kills. Attacking, yeah.
Yeah.
Still. Anybody who has ever really doubted Tiana Boskovic already at this young point in her career should apologize to her, because she's clearly that good. I think really the only thing to talk about in Pool A on the women's side is that Serbia will play Brazil. I actually think that's tonight.
Yeah, I think people in the chat, Eduardo Pereira, yeah. Serbia, Brazil, shocked face emoji. So.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's a must watch. That is an absolutely must watch match, and that'll have big implications on the crossovers. Which of those teams finishes first versus second? So yeah, if you're a European fan and you're looking for a medal contender, a medal favorite, both Serbia and Italy are playing at that level right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, do you want to talk about anything else in Pool A at all, Rob? With Serbia is the only European team.
I think everything else has kind of been chalk. Dominican Republic hasn't played quite as well as maybe I thought. The hosts from Japan are in a decent position to make it out. Korea had a terrible VNL, but look much better now. And yeah, I think it's really just going to come down to that Serbia-Brazil match. I think that those are the only real contenders in this pool.
And is there anything you want to talk about with Italy? Because I don't think we spent too much time on them other than saying Paola Egonu is an absolute god.
Well, they look really good. They beat Turkey pretty convincingly. Let's see, who else have they played so far?
They play Argentina 3-0.
Yeah, that's
with a nice action shot of Egonu that I'm showing you guys right now. But what do you think? They're also a team that's maybe played a little bit with a lineup. And one of the most interesting is switching kind of between Petrini and Sila at the outside hitter position.
Yeah, Italy, one of the only teams in the tournament on either side to bring 4 middles and 3 outside hitters to this tournament. That was a very interesting roster choice. So we've seen Caterina Bassetti start consistently every match, and we've seen a little bit of Petrini and a little bit of Miriam Silla. So that's gone back and forth. And I don't know, Dan, who would you start if you were coaching Italy? Which of the two of them would you start in must-win matches?
Oh, that's tough. Because the thing is that, which I was kind of questioning Italy's roster choice a little bit, because I feel like Sila and Petrini are both more offensive outside hitters rather than the kind of pass first defense type outside hitter, which maybe you would think with Egonu you would want. I guess Caterina Bassetti is already in that mold. Well, I mean, she can do everything, but
yeah.
But I would have brought. I don't know. I think what they've been doing so far is good. Just switch between them contextually, situationally, whoever's playing better. Because I think Sila probably at this point. It still is the better blocker, I would say, and probably the higher ceiling. But we've seen her can struggle in reception and be a bit inconsistent. And before, Rob, throw it back to you. Carla Santini, by the way, love having you in the chat. One of the best fans of the European Volleyball Show, but she's disagreeing with us, Rob. Aganu hasn't shown what she's capable of. Bassetti has been the highlight of the Italian team. And I believe we went over this, Rob, in our preview a bit, that Bassetti is, an absolute monster, was incredible in her club season, and it was going to be a key part of this Italian team. And you're right, yeah, Carla, we probably overlooked her. We're probably giving Iganu a little bit too much credit just because she does have the highlight plays. She does have the big numbers on the box score. But you're right, Caterina Bassetti is the player that I think, I agree, is holding it together quite a bit.
One of the best all-around, all-phase players on the planet. And it's just that simple. She's really, really important to Italy. And I think because she's so good in every phase, I think that's why Italy chose to bring 4 middles and only 3 outsides, because they're so confident in what Bassetti's going to bring them that they can switch between the other 2 outside hitters, both of who are more offensively minded, and know that they can really, really rely on Bassetti in that other spot. I think that's a big part of that, the confidence in her.
Yes. Rob, before we move on to the beach, a couple things. One, in our previews, guys, we predicted the over-under in terms of the number of European medals. Rob, I forget, did we combine indoor and beach, or was it was just indoor, right?
We said just indoor. So yeah. I'll explain that really quick. There are 6 medals to be awarded in indoor across the men's and the women's. And so we were setting if we were betting people, the over under line at 2.5 medals for European teams across both genders and indoor. So basically, do we think 3 or more European teams will medal, or 2 or less? And I think we both said 3 was a pretty safe number, something that we would not be at all surprised by. Has that changed at all for you, Dan, since now that the Olympics has started? You still think 3 European teams will reach the podium?
I think I feel more confident now than I did before, because we've seen every European.
Me too.
If France, by the way, how's the France match going?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. It's over. France held on. So France men, the French men have beaten Russia 3-1, 25-20 in the 4th. So an absolute must win for France, and they won it. Russia's still in pretty good position to win the pool because they've got a slight edge over Brazil in the tiebreakers, but France have now put themselves in a really good position, and Argentina is just crying right now.
So now we've seen that. Okay, so this is where I'm going with this. Now that we've seen that almost every European team is probably going to qualify. I mean, Turkey is still a question mark, but now France has a very good shot. So if France and Turkey qualify, that's every European team that competed going to be in the playoffs. And I think you have to pick Europe to win 3 medals in that case or more.
Yeah, I think on the men's side, I thought the podium might only include Poland out of Europe. But now Russia looks like a legitimate podium contender despite this match today, and maybe Italy. And then on the women's side,
the women's is really
Serbia
interesting too.
And Italy, yeah,
because China,
I think only Serbia and Italy, right? Yeah, China doesn't look like they're going to qualify, which is insane. So that's a medal, like the reigning Olympic champions, a gold medal favorite going in, who's completely now opened the door, opened a spot on the podium for anybody else. So I think the USA and Brazil still really big podium contenders, but both Serbia and Italy could come into this quarterfinal, this playoff bracket, and win this tournament. Absolutely, that could happen.
Yeah. So I guess Korea, Japan, but for me, yeah. I mean, that's almost guaranteed for the woman, for at least one European, in my opinion, to get through, and maybe even guaranteed depending on how the matchups are. I haven't looked at it. If the crossover works, that there's only European teams on one side of the bracket or something. But
yeah, you're gonna have 3 European teams on the women's side advancing out of Pool B.
Yeah, which is
because Turkey still gets to play Argentina.
Right.
Assuming they win that, I think that might be all they need to advance.
Yeah. So I would say very high chance. Guys, in the chat, what do you think? How many medals will Europe win in the indoor competition? I see Some people are already guessing. Nisette Babat says 1 Serbia, 2 Italy, 3 Turkey. Mirko, Serbia, USA, Turkey. Sud Noor says Italy, Serbia, Turkey. So Rob, not a lot of people picking USA, Brazil here. Oh, there's one USA, no Brazils.
It's okay. This is a European show. I understand, but I mean, other like fandom bias aside, if you guys are counting out either Brazil or the USA women, you have not been paying attention. Those two teams will have a lot more to do with this tournament as it goes on.
They certainly will. Okay, guys, that's going to be it for the indoor. And now let's go to the sunny beaches of Tokyo and talk a little bit about beach volleyball, where I feel like the European teams haven't been as dominant, Rob, as they have been on the indoor side.
I think that's if you could summarize the beach tournament in one sentence, that's about it right there. Some of the European favorites have just not quite been what we expected so far. Starting off with the beach volley Vikings, I think we've got to start there.
Sure, that's a good place to start. Obviously, the Vikings, the #1 team in the world, or maybe the Qataris are ranked #1 right now, but consistently over the last few years, triple guys, European champions. Just been like the biggest storyline in volleyball, pretty much, or beach volleyball, pretty much since the last Olympics. And this is the big test. This is the first time where they're really competing in the Olympics like this because they're such a young team. And I would say, Rob, it's not really going the way maybe they would have liked it to go so far, and we can dive a little bit into it. I mean, they do have a very strong pool with Leshikov, Semenov beating them the other day. It was surprising to me that they dropped a set against McHugh Schumann, the Australian team, who I would consider...
that should not have happened.
I think the Australians actually looked a lot better than I expected, but still, on paper, one of the weakest teams in the tournament. And Rob, maybe we can get into a little bit of why that seems to be a case. And for me, and I think a lot of people I think the FIVB had an article about this specific thing, but teams are serving Anders Mol pretty much every single time, and that has seemed to rattle them quite a bit.
Yeah, that's the thing about beach volleyball that you can control, is if you figure that out, which it seems like people are starting to figure that out, then you can totally define the other team's offense based on who you serve, which is how the game works. So yeah, serving Anders Mol, I didn't think that would be as effective as it looks like it has been. Other teams have figured that out, and the Vikings are going to have to adjust to that. I think they're going to have to figure out kind of how their offense is going to work.
And obviously, he's not the passer receiver that Christian Sorum is. But for me, he also seems to make a lot of mistakes in attacking as well when it's not a really clean set, which Christian Sorum delivers a lot of the time, but not every single time. And he struggled for a guy who's maybe one of the most athletic volleyball players in our sport, even counting indoor as well. The attacking technical ability doesn't seem to be there right now. And Rob, one thing is funny because he is currently the leading scorer in the Olympics for beach, right? That's great news, right, Rob?
Actually, no, it's not.
No.
There's a lot more to read into in that stat than just the number of points.
No, actually, being the leading scorer in a beach volleyball tournament is often not a good thing.
Not a good thing, right?
Because it means you are being targeted on every single serve. And with the Vikings, I mean, what we've seen what the Vikings are capable of. They've seemed almost unbeatable for most of this run. But we saw a very good start at Cancun, winning the first 2 tournaments. But after that, in Cancun, that kind of stretch between then and now, that they haven't looked that great in the tournaments they've taken part in. So I think there is a little bit of worry with the beach volleyball Vikings. They're going to make it through to the next round, probably, I think, directly as one of the top 2 finishers in the pool. So that's not a worry, but it's do or die because there's some very good teams at this Olympics.
Agreed. It's similarly as wide open as the indoor tournament is. I don't know how to pick a champion, or I don't know how to pick a winner right now. I definitely, the Vikings were my personal favorites coming into the Olympics, but it just hasn't been as convincing as we would have liked it to be. And I don't really know what to make of all that. Leshikov and Semenov from Russia beating them and winning the pool was a very nice performance for them. So that's a pleasant surprise.
A repeat of the 2019 European Beach Volleyball Championships, I believe. So that's by the way, guys, all these teams will be at Euro Beach Volley starting August 11th. So over 40 teams, Europeans are Olympians in beach, and I think as of now, pretty much all of them will be Euro Beach Volley. So definitely remember to check that out.
What a crazy turnaround too. That's so quick coming back from Tokyo.
I think 3 days pretty much for 4 days for the first place team. And also,
Insane.
Rob, guess how much we're charging for Euro Beach on Eurovolley TV?
Tell me, Dan.
€3 for the whole tournament.
€3 for the whole tournament? Come on, I would think you guys would be losing money on that. That's an incredible deal.
So everyone sign up for that. Okay, a couple more things on the men's side. Krasilnikov, Stoyanovsky, the main rivals of the beach volleyball Vikings throughout this entire saga, actually lost to Plavinstok, the Latvian team that managed to qualify for the Olympics. And yeah, another surprising loss for a former world champion. So that's a tough one. I mean, they're not European, but the main contenders, I would say, for the tournament and the story of the year have been the two Qatar players, Sharif and Ahmed, who play like a very unique style of beach volleyball that's just pure athleticism, pure power. And they're really
so much fun to watch. If you guys haven't watched that Qatari team, they're really special.
Unfortunately, Karimbula Rossi got a very tough pool. I saw one thing I love is that Karimbula every tournament I saw on TikTok, I saw on Instagram Reels, just people watching Karimbula do a skyball signature serve, and everyone's mind is just blown, Mr. Skyball. And I feel like we almost take it for granted that we're kind of used to it a little bit at this point, but it's a very unique style of play. Unfortunately, not making it through.
Yeah, it's funny to see like non-volleyball viewers see the sky ball and they're like, what is going on here? Like, what kind of a serve is this? So like, yeah, he does that. He does that every time.
Rob, even for me, I don't know if you've tried to hit like a 40-meter sky ball in the air before. It's really hard.
I have, and it has not gone well. That's a difficult thing to not like. To even hit the ball forward is an achievement. To hit it that high, it's crazy.
Unbelievable. And then a team, a very European pool, the last one we'll talk about here before we move on. Pool F for the men with three great European teams, Lupo Nikolai, Kantor Losiak, and Tole Vikler. And Rob, I think the one place we have to start with this pool is that maybe one of the best beach volleyball highlights I have ever seen, and I hope you guys can manage to track this down because it's kind of all over the internet a bit today. But Paolo Nicolai, by the way, like 6'9", on the beach, going under the net, off a dig by Lupo, diving. I think it was like with one hand, putting the ball back in play onto his own side, a free ball for the Polish team. And then Paolo Nicolai getting up, running back, making the block at the absolute last second. Something that in indoor is already almost impossible to make as a play. But Paolo Nicolai doing it on a beach, that was something special.
Yeah, you guys have got to track down that highlight. That's one of the best beach volleyball plays I've ever seen. Like you're saying, Dan, we've seen it in indoor very, very rarely. Like we saw the very famous Vladimir Gerbich play from the Olympics in the early 2000s. We saw TJ DeFalco do it in VNL this year, like jumping over a barrier, then coming back and stuff blocking a ball. I've never seen that in my life on the beach. I've never seen somebody run that ball down and keep it in play, let alone get back and stuff block a ball immediately. That was unbelievable. You guys have got to find that play. And
another team I want to talk about a bit, Tole Vikler, who previously has been, I think his number as high as number 3 or 4 ranked in the world, but have not been great recently. They've had some injury issues, of course, but third place in this pool for a team that looked like one of the best young upcoming teams a few years ago is a bit of a disappointment. And I think this is a good opportunity, Rob, to maybe just explain the format for the beach a little bit, because they're actually not out of the tournament yet. It's the first 2 teams from each pool will go straight to the next round. The two best third place teams will go on to the next round, and then the rest of the third place teams will play a lucky loser mini tournament, which consists of 2 matches, and the winner of that lucky loser tournament will fill in the rest of the next round of matches. So technically, the third place teams are not out yet. Very difficult road to get back into the winners bracket, of course, but still a little hope left for our third place European teams here. The Czech team, Tole Vikler, Herrera Gavira. So some good teams there in third place, Rob. Heidrich Gerson, the Swiss team, qualifying through the Continental Cup earlier this summer. So yeah, there's still, that lucky losers bracket is going to be quite important for the European teams.
Yeah, it's actually kind of nice that all you have to do to have a chance is not get fourth, and you still have a chance. I mean, it's the Olympics. Everything's difficult. All the pools are difficult. So you're right. Difficult road to go through that little lucky loser draw if you don't have like a 3-set loss or something to help you out in the tiebreak standings. But yeah, a lot of the European teams are still alive. When we get to the round of 16, or like when we start getting to elimination stage, it's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, but Rob, before we move on to the women's beach here, I think overall I have to say I really want to see the Vikings in the finals for sure. I think it'd be such a shame if they didn't end this kind of era of their career with an Olympic finals appearance at least. And I want to see either Krasilnikov Stoyanovsky, because I feel like that's been such an incredible rivalry over the years, or the Qatari team. I think as their opponents, one of those two teams I think would be incredible.
Yeah, I agree. It would be a shame for the Vikings not to play for gold. I think that's just what the sport probably needs. But I like that Krasilnikov, that Russian duo, the rivalry there, and all European finals would be pretty sweet.
For sure. All right. So unless anyone in the chat has anything I feel like we're still talking about the indoor and the chat a little bit, which is fine. But let's move on to the women's beach tournament, if I can find the right tab here. Where I would say, even more so than the men's, that some of the European teams have been struggling a little bit. And why don't we start with the European champions of both of 2020, which is Verge Dupre and Heidrich, the Swiss team. Not the worst tournament, because they lost to the reigning world champions in Sarah Pavin and Melissa Jimena Paredes. But haven't maybe looked as confident as they did during that European Championship win. And then the other 2019 European Championships in Tina Graudina and Anastasia Kravchenoka, third place in their pool, Rob. So but they lost to a very good team.
Yeah,
if you want to say.
Pool draws. Yeah, tough pool draws for both of them.
Yeah.
The Swiss team with Pavin and Melissa, I think that's probably the best team in the world on the women's side. That's a very, very difficult draw. But yeah, the Latvians too. I saw that match against Clayson Sponsel, the Americans. That was a missed opportunity. I think the Latvians were up maybe 11-10, or they were up a point or two in the third, and Clayson Sponsel went on a 6-0 run to win the match. So that was a missed opportunity, but kind of an important tiebreak point maybe in the standings. Who do they have left to play? Do they play Brazil or do they play Kenya last?
Is there still? Oh yeah, that's a good point, because if they play Brazil, that could be a bit dicey. But sorry, I went off the standings for a bit. Let's go back to the schedule here, because you're right, Rob. That will make a big difference. And
they play Kenya. They played Kenya last, so that's a lot better than having to play Brazil again.
Yeah.
They already beat that Brazilian team, Ana Patricia and Rebecca. So nice win there.
Yeah.
And so that should put them at 2-1 and in a comfortable spot for the Latvian duo.
Yeah. So Rob, there's one team though that I think maybe not surprising, because they have been I guess simmering at the top of beach volleyball tournaments for a while. But Svetlana Kolomina and Nadezhda Makarkuzova, the Russian team, who's again like third at the European Championships in 2020, which I think people didn't expect as much. Fifth in the World Championships in 2019. They've won a couple World Tour events. They haven't won a big tournament yet, but they've been finishing pretty consistently high, including second, fifth, and ninth at the Cancun tournaments, and fifth at the World Tour in Doha. But I think this Russian pair, Rob, are kind of on the upswing and still quite young. Kolomina is a 97, so in beach volleyball, that's not very old at all. And I think right now, maybe had a bit of an easier pool, but still, still three very strong teams in the Australians, the Cubans, and Menegatti and Orsi Toth. And Rob, I don't know. Do you think this Russian team is potentially Europe's best chance for a medal on the beach?
Ooh, interesting. On the women's side,
On the women's side, yeah.
Right. They could be. I think they're the only European team that's at all likely to win their pool.
Yeah.
So that certainly helps. No, this the Swiss team in Pool F, who barely
Yes,
had
Huberly
bet
Butchart, who are, again, top 10 ranked in the world team. They are very strong as well.
Yeah, I think it's between those two, knowing my limited knowledge of women's beach, to be honest with you guys. But yeah, that Russian duo is in a very, very good spot at the very least. They've put themselves in a great spot to do some damage in bracket. We'll see who they draw.
And another team that I'm also interested to watch, Euro Beach Volley, because for me, like this plus Euro Beach Volley are almost like one continuous tournament because it's so.
It's going to seem like that. It's going to seem like that. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So before we end the show here, guys, today, so getting a question, if you guys have question about anything, doesn't have to be women's beach. Let's talk about Pool F, because like you said, Huberly Butchart, who maybe went out of the spotlight a little bit just because their country mates and Virg Dupre and Joanna Hadrich won basically the only beach volleyball tournament of 2020, which was the European Beach Volleyball Championships. But still, one of the best teams in the world and have had tons of success on the beach, ranked top 10 in the world. Let's see, they were, won Baden 2020. First place, fourth of the World Championships 2019, dominated the Swiss Championships every year, second European Championships 2018. So yeah, still a very strong team, and of course, a team that I think a lot of people are paying attention to, and just are big fans because they've been such big names in volleyball over the years. But Laura Ludwig and Maggie Kozic, I think definitely like one of the most popular teams in the tournament, just from a fan interest perspective, and have not sometimes played the best beach volleyball. I know they were playing pretty well at Euro Beach Volley in Latvia last year until Ludwig went down with that injury at a very inopportune time, I believe, in the quarterfinals. And Rob, I think they've looked pretty strong so far, losing against the Swiss team, but overall, I don't know if they're gonna repeat. Like Ludwig's gonna win another Olympic gold here because. She has been there before, but I'm kind of a little bit seeing them as a dark horse here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. 2-1, 5 points in the pool is a really good spot. I'd put them in the dark horse category. They might be the best second place finishing team. Yeah. Agatha and Duda in Pool C are really good too. Yeah. They're going to be a contender. You're right. That German team definitely fan favorites, so that'll be fun to watch.
Okay, and one more in Pool A. The last team I'm going to talk about here, Rob. Stam and Schoen from the Netherlands. Another very, very young team like the Russians, even younger. I think both of them might actually be born after the year 2000. And definitely a team to watch from the Netherlands, qualifying through the Continental Cup earlier this summer. And I think a team to watch in the future. You kind of have kind of the offense, defense, kind of Melissa Serra with one of the players being very strong defensively, very fast in the sand, and the other player just being a monster at the net and scoring very well. So they beating the German team of Sudenborger, I think not a lot of people expected that. I know you don't know a ton about them, so I'm just kidding.
I don't.
Okay, that's it. So overall, Rob, great show. Thank you for joining me. I think hopefully you guys got caught up with what's going on in the Olympics. It's been an absolutely amazing journey so far. I think everyone's, even though it would be a lot better with fans, but I think people are still very much into the Olympic spirit. And we're about to get to the fun parts. Like this, we're not even in
yes, we are.
Teams are going to start going home. We're going to start having matches like Poland versus like USA, Italy versus Brazil. We're going to have some incredible matches. And of course, Rob, in volleyball, we pretty much every volleyball fan has memorized like the Olympic matches from the last 2 decades. So these are
Yeah,
going to,
the things that we're going to be talking about for the next 20 years are about to happen in the next couple days.
yeah.
Just to put a couple big ones on your calendar, or at least in your heads. Serbia, Brazil women's indoor is obviously a huge one. That's tonight. Turkey, Argentina should be a pretty comfortable win for Turkey, I would expect. Italy versus China, maybe a spoiler opportunity for China, really fighting for their lives. If they have any chance, they've got to win that one. USA, Russia women is tonight. And then the next day on the men's side, Brazil, France is going to be enormous for France, even though like they just beat Russia. That's big. See if they can keep that momentum up. Italy, Venezuela should be no problem. Poland, Canada will actually be very interesting. Dan, I know you're excited about that one.
Yes, very much so.
And then the last USA, Italy women on the last day of pools will probably decide who wins Pool B. That is a huge one. I'm very excited to watch that.
Yeah, so I mean, we're not done the pool phase yet. There's still, especially on the women's side, there's still a lot of volleyball left to be played with two full matches for each team. And yeah, so guys, stay tuned on the CEV channels. Guys, if you haven't been checking out the blog posts on the CEV website, we're going real deep, covering all the European teams, some great pieces of content being produced by our writers, covering pretty much every single match, every single day for men's indoor, women's indoor, men's beach, women's beach. So definitely check that out, cev.eu, if you guys want, a very comprehensive summary in English on what's going on. And remember, Euro Beach Volley starting right after the tournament. And then, guys, we have Euro Volley happening right after that. And again, like Euro Beach Volley, we have a special package on eurovolley.tv where you can get the entire tournament access to it for a very reasonable price. So check out eurovolley.tv if you guys want some special deals that we're having for you. It's a new thing where you're just buying access to the tournament. So I would highly recommend, if you want to watch, your favorite team during Eurovolley, make sure you check out the geo-blocking, geo-restrictions. But if you're not covered by that, then that is definitely the best way to do it. And I think that's all the promotion I have, Rob, for today. So
yeah, we're just starting to roll out some YouTube previews for Eurovolley.
Yes.
So definitely stay subscribed to this channel if you're not already, and check out all those, because similar to Euro Beach Volley, not quite as quick of a turnaround, but pretty quick. I think August 18th, women's Eurovolley starts in pool play. So that is coming up very, very soon.
And Rob, who's doing those?
I am doing those. If you're not sick of my voice, then you might like those little previews. We're tackling a bunch of the teams, and then we'll do a pretty detailed breakdown of each pool for the women, and then we'll do the same for the men when we get closer to that tournament.
Yeah. So for anyone
a lot
watching,
of Eurovolley coverage.
For anyone watching the Olympics, Eurovolley is just about as high level. Most of the best teams at the Olympics will be at Eurovolley. So there's lots of volleyball left to play. It doesn't end after the Olympics. But overall, thanks everyone for joining today. Thanks everyone who contributed in the chat. And we'll see everyone next time. Talk some more Olympics, hopefully, Rob. Maybe some Eurovolley, we'll see. But see you guys.
Thanks for watching.